Third down and 20.
But we are going to move on here because I have a lot to say on this given subject. We're going to be talking about the Seahawks defense. And I watched a ton of film on the Seahawks defense this week, and I think I've got it. I think I've got the whole narrative behind what's going on. They've had right now they're 32nd in passing defense. They've had historically one of the worst defenses in recent memory and even all time, just in terms of points given up. Um, and I've kind of pinpointed it down to the 3 to 4 main reasons why the Seahawks have not been performing well. And the first and foremost reason, which really shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone, is there are players that are just not filling their responsibility in plays, not doing their job on the play. And I know that sounds cliche, but I'll bring up a couple clips to show you that. But they're just, whether it's they're trying to account for another player's job or they're just not doing theirs, the plays are designed for a specific reason, and certain players are not fulfilling that responsibility. And the second, more obvious reason, which the Seahawks have tried to address, is just their lack of pass rush. This is a team that has
Mhm.
struggled not necessarily to get to the quarterback, but to consistently put on pressure to where a quarterback is throwing off of their spot, to where they have to think about the pass rush. This is a team that to get any sort of pass rush, they have to blitz their linebackers. Their linebackers seem to be the best pass rushers on the team, more specifically Bobby Wagner. Um, so we'll get a little bit into that from clips of the last game against the Bills. And then the last one is just their zone coverage is just allowing so much space, especially their soft zone coverage. So let's get into some of the clips now on that game. Bang time. Here we go. So this is the first play I want to bring up, and this is the first play that the Bills scored, their first touchdown. And what you're gonna see here is, if you don't know, the Seahawks are primarily they're a cover three team. They're going to be running three high zone a majority of their plays. They'll bring in some Tampa two and some cover four looks, which is basically just they'll have two high safeties with the middle of the field open. But on this play, they're going to be running their cover three buzz, where you have Jamal Adams covering this little hook to curl area, 1, 2, 3, 4 underneath, with 1, 2, 3 in their deep thirds. And the Bills, I mean, you have to give credit to the Bills in this game. You don't put up 44 points without having a really good game plan. So I'm going to have to shout out Brian Dable for the game plan that he came up with. And especially on concepts like these, where you're going to have John Brown at the top of the screen run a little curl with Isaiah McKenzie, a burner, running this over post route towards this pylon. And this is the first example of a player not fulfilling their responsibility on this play. You're going to see here, this corner up here, Trey Flowers, has this deep third. He has this area of space, and he's trying to cover this curl route that is Jamal Adams' area. And you're going to see here it's an over route to Isaiah McKenzie, where he has an entire half of the field that Quandre Diggs has to cover. And this is just essentially a blown coverage for a touchdown. There's way too much space given up. And that's just because Trey Flowers does not sync on this play, forcing Quandre Diggs to try and have to cover a burner like Isaiah McKenzie across the entire field. It's just a bad matchup. And this is just one of many plays where Seahawks players did not fulfill their responsibility. This is the second drive of the game, and this is essentially a busted play from the Bills and Josh Allen. And Josh Allen's able to just make something happen. So on this play, you're going to see they have a zone read here on the new addition of Carlos Dunlap. And let me go a little bit. They have some sort of like throwback screen going on here. It's just a bad play design or a busted play, one of the two. And if you're Carlos Dunlap here, your main responsibility is setting this edge. You cannot let anyone get outside of you. and he gets caught up. This is a man coverage look. He gets caught up on this play action because he sees Stephon Diggs sneaking behind the offensive line. So I can see what he's thinking here, and I see what he sees. He's saying, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to try and give a little hit onto Stephon Diggs so that you don't have an easy throw for Josh Allen here. The problem with that is that there's already a guy, Trey Flowers, I believe it is, in man coverage on Stephon Diggs. This is just clearly a player that is trying to do someone else's role. These plays are designed so that each person has their responsibility. The Patriots say it all the time, and it's really cliche, do your job. This is just another example of a player not doing their job and trying to do someone else's. And this lets Josh Allen get the edge. And this is a play that could have easily been a sack. It turns into a 7-yard gain plus a horse collar tackle on 2nd and goal at the 10. So you turn what could be a 3rd and goal at the 10 to 15 to 8-yard line into a 1st and goal at the 1. That's at minimum a 4-point swing. Like 3rd and goal at the 12, you could even be the historically worst pass defense in the NFL and still cover that. So it's just these stupid mistakes that are killing this Seattle Seahawks football team, turning a long 3rd and goal into a 1st and goal, fresh set of downs. And it just keeps going on and on and on. You're going to see here, this is the player they traded 2 first-round picks for. This is Jamal Adams with a clear mistake. There's going to be a 5-man rush. You have 1, 2, 3 underneath defenders with your 3 over top defenders. And you can say that the Seattle Seahawks pass rush is bad, but Green over here gets clean through and forces Josh Allen to step up in the pocket. This is just another time where a player's trying to do too much, it seems like. Jamal Adams is going to come up and try to sack and assist in the pass rush of Josh Allen. He lets Devin Singletary sneak through. And once Devin Singletary catches this ball, guess where he goes? To where Jamal Adams should be right here. This is another play. This is a could-be sack, maybe a small gain for Devin Singletary that turns into a 22-yard play, fresh set of downs at the goal line. Like, are you really going to blame? I see people online blaming the Seahawks, Pete Carroll, the defensive coordinator, the staff. Are you really is this a bad play call? Or is just an example of a player trying to do too much, just not fulfilling their responsibility on the play? I guess you also have to shout out the threat of Josh Allen's legs on that play as well, because if that's someone like Joe Flacco, Jamal Adams is not going to bite on that run. No offense to Joe Flacco or anything, but you're just not going to.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you guys think? Do you guys think that this is like a bad decision here by Jamal Adams? Because this is a little bit ambiguous here, what he should do. Regardless, it's just a bad angle.
But you got to remember, too, that Jamal Adams hasn't played that many games with the Seahawks yet. What was that, like his 3rd or 4th game? He's been hurt for a while. Like, is it did the injury have to do something with it? Like he hasn't been in the system that much with it. Like, and we brought that play with Dunlap earlier. I mean, that's his first game. Like, the silver lining for the Seahawks are that it can only get better. Like, I still think the defense could turn it around, especially like if you're picking up, like, it just seems like the players are not where they supposed to be, maybe doing too much. But like Dunlap did have a decent game. He had a sack and a couple more tackles, and Jamal Adams, even though he's been a question in coverage to me, like especially this year, I think we all know what he brings to the table, and but I think it has to be like on the players, because I've seen it too where like people are blaming coaching. I can't blame coaching if you're just blowing up your assignment. Like you're just not where you're supposed to be.
Well, yeah, on this play too, you can clearly see this is a should have been sack. I think it's Rashawn Green, he was a 3rd round pick a couple years ago. He clearly beats his guy and has a play on Josh Allen in the backfield. We can get a second angle on it over here. Like, this should be a sack. 100%. That should be a sack. And my argument is that if it's not a sack, you need to eat that up. This is a great play call, and it works. They get pressure on the quarterback with the 5-man rush. They force Josh Allen to check it down to Devin Singletary, where you have Bobby Wagner, all-pro middle linebacker, and Jamal Adams, all-pro, arguably best safety, within 5 yards of him. Like, if you're the Seahawks staff, you can't ask for a better situation to put your defense in, I feel like. And you get pressure on the quarterback. So I think you're right. Like, the players just need to come up here and make a play. This is just bad and these are top players on this defense that are screwing up. It's not like this is, Joe Schmo 6th-round pick filling in for an injury over here. This is the guy that you traded 2 first-round picks for, and then some, and you're all-pro middle linebacker.
Yeah. But let's not forget, Trey Flowers is a walking trash can, okay? He has been since day one. You know my hatred for Trey Flowers, man. I told you last year watching whenever I bet on the Seahawks to win the Super Bowl and I just watched the games, I'd be like, dude, he sucks. I don't think I've ever seen him make a play. He's just terrible.
Well, yeah, now I'm going to transition. I'm going to transition here to show a couple clips of that exact problem you're talking about. Trey Flowers and Dunbar. Dunbar was playing hurt. He probably should not have been on the field because he was getting picked on all day. I was
going to say about Dunbar. Yeah, he's battling with injury.
But right here, the Seahawks are just going to be in their cover 4, so they're going to have these 4 guys over the top with these 3 underneath, just rushing 4, and just look at this zone. There's so much space for Josh Allen. Not only is there absolutely zero pass rush, he's going to throw it to Gabriel Davis over here. There's not a guy within 10 yards of him. Like, this is not how you run this zone. You have 2 guys in this exact area with Gabriel Davis wide open. Like, yeah, you can blame the staff, but at the end of the day, players are not fulfilling their responsibility. They're not in the places that they are coached to be in.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely absurd. And this is the reason why this defense is it's a very similar scheme to what they were doing when they made the Super Bowl. Not a terrible, there haven't been terribly crazy changes to this defense. It's just, I think, on the players to fulfill your responsibility. It's just, this soft zone is terrible. And then if you want to ask me, oh, well, if their zone is so bad, why don't they play man coverage? Okay, well, here's an example of why you can't play man coverage if you're Pete Carroll. And it has to mainly do with your pass rush. You're going to be in a man coverage look here. Come on. Hang time. Look at this pocket for Josh Allen. Dude doesn't have to move. He literally does not have to move on half of the throws that he made this game. He doesn't have to move. So you could say, oh, yeah, just run man coverage. Josh Allen can just sit here. You got a little rub mesh concept here. He can just sit here. He doesn't have to anticipate at all. He could just see whoever comes open off the rub route. Oh, easy throw. Once again, like, it doesn't matter what the Seahawks try to run if they have zero pass rush. And it's not even that they're not getting sacks. They are not forcing the quarterback to even move. That's how bad it is this game. They had 5 sacks this game. But this is the problem. This is why they wanted Dunlap. This is why they needed to get Clowney back. Is because it's not about the sacks. Their average is like decent in the league in sacks. It's these plays. It's the fact that a quarterback can sit there, he can yawn, he can blow his nose, he can even wipe his butt and still make a throw with no pressure. He can just sit there and look at every single guy. He can even pull out his freaking binoculars. It doesn't matter. It's just absolutely absurd. And here, I'll just bring up some more clips of just negative pass rush. Here, I'm pretty sure they're going to blitz a linebacker. Yep. Look at this pocket. But it doesn't matter how Bill Belichick can't do anything with this pass rush. How are you going to blame Pete Carroll for this? That's just my whole argument. Like, yeah, you can blame him for putting the guys on the field that aren't aren't coming up with sacks and with consistent pass rush, but my God, it
Yeah,
doesn't
but
matter what scheme you have on the back end.
dude, but there's guys on this defense who are like, Pro Bowl players, all pro players. It's not like they're just, like you said before, they got Joe Schmo in the 6th round playing out there. It is just, there's something that's not clicking with the team,
Like, this is
at
just
least on this side of the
absolutely
ball.
absurd. Josh Allen can do whatever the hell he wants in this pocket. It doesn't matter. Cover 3, man coverage, cover 4. Who cares about the coverage on the back end? You got to be able to get to the quarterback when you rush 5, at least eventually. I wonder how many seconds Josh Allen could have sat back here. What do you think, 7
Dude, all
seconds?
day. Yeah, all day. Nathan Peterman could have been back there for 10 seconds.
Here's another example. Just no pass rush. Look at this pocket. Okay, they finally got a guy into him a little bit after what, 4 seconds? Like, Jesus Christ. It's just, and the other problem for the Seahawks this game was just Dunbar. Dunbar, I don't think should have been playing. He was hurt coming into this week. Just a really rough performance from him. Here's one touchdown. I'm not sure they called it a touchdown, but if you look on the replay, it was. And then here's an example earlier in the game of Dunbar just getting worked. I actually really like this play design by Dabble and the Bills, McDermott, all those guys. You're going to fake this one of those little jet sweep kind of a things. They're going to act like Josh Allen is running to the right. Here, let me rewind a smidge. So then they fake this run. Gabriel Davis is going to fake like he's blocking. Bang, a little pop pass. Just abusing Dunbar in every way possible. And, like, it doesn't matter what you do. And I think this problem, if you look at it even further, because I started looking back, like, that 49ers game that they had last week was a much better performance from the Seahawks defense than we saw all season. So I'm like, I look back at that game, like, what's the difference between the two games? And there is one very, very dramatic difference. The personnel groupings and how you play this Seattle defense. The 49ers came out to start that game against Seattle in 5 wide, and it was working. They hit Ayuk for 11 yards. They had Kittle for an open play that there was some sort of misconnection. I think it was a drop, but it could have been a bad throw by Jimmy Garoppolo. And then the 49ers went to what they do. They go 22 personnel, 12 personnel. For those who don't know, that's 2 running backs, 2 tight ends, 1 running back, 2 tight ends. Just those bigger, tighter formations, which I think allowed the Seahawks to blitz their linebackers more, the players that are actually good on this defense, and let Jamal Adams, well, he wasn't playing, but you saw in the beginning of the season, like, you do not want to let him feast around the box. Just look at the Atlanta game. The Bills, I think, attacked this defense the perfect way, a very similar way that the Cardinals were able to attack this defense. 4 wide receiver sets, spread this defense out. And if you go and look back at all these clips, just look at the personnel groupings. 4 receivers, spread the defense out. Don't let them disguise their blitzes. Don't let them blitz these linebackers. And then force all these coverage players to be in space with a lack of a pass rush. Here we go, another play. 4 receiver set. This is the key to beating the Seahawks. And I think that the Bills looked at that 49ers game, those first couple of snaps, and that Cardinals game, and easily saw, let's just spread this team out. They can't cover us on outside the numbers, and they can't pass rush if we spread them out. And I think that's the key to beating this team. I'm curious as to what your guys' thoughts are on seeing all this.
I mean, clearly,
Yeah,
yeah, your point is exactly right. I mean, they have a huge hole there. If you spread out, offense just spreads out the receivers. They're going to torch them all game, and like we've seen this kind of all season, even with the Dolphins game too. Fitzpatrick had his way with them. They made a couple plays that would ultimately they won the game, but like I think the defense is just spoiled where, like, they have a player like Russell Wilson they can just always kind of rely on, be like, well, we can give up a touchdown here, but we know he's going to, like, equal it out, and we just got to make a couple plays. One game, like, especially if you're a Super Bowl contender, which the Seahawks are, like, heavy favorites for it, like, the defense is going to have to make a dramatic run. It's going to have to switch in the second half and figure out. And hopefully the Dunlap trade now, like, the more it gets put in the system, he helps them out, and hopefully that helps the safeties out. And as Jamal Adams gets back healthy and Dunbar gets back healthy, it will enhance this defense a little more. But it is alarming to see, like, this defense play this horrible the Super Bowl for a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah, I really like the point of the Bills being able to spread the field out. And I mean, if you think about the Bills, that's something they do a lot. Like, it's not just the Stephon Diggs, John Brown, and Cole Beasley. They also get Gabriel Davis and Isaiah McKenzie a lot more involved than some other team would with their fourth or fifth wide receivers. So I think that makes it a really tough matchup for the Seahawks when you're able to spread the ball around like that to a bunch of different receivers.
I do think so. There are a couple silver linings with this because I don't want to crap on the Seahawks too much. First, their two worst defensive performances, this Bills game and the Cardinals game, are the two teams. They played against the two teams, the Bills and the Cardinals, that run the most four receiver personnel. Got the figures here. Hold on, somewhere around here. Same time. Buffalo this season has run 104 snaps with four receivers. And the Cardinals, 115 snaps with four receiver personnel. Way more, both those teams, than anyone else in the league. So I think at least, like, so far they've gotten their worst matchups out of the way. Aside from the Cardinals that you're going to have to play again, those are easily, for your defense, the worst matchups. Compared to when you play a team like the Niners, yeah, you gave up 27 points, but as long as they're not able to spread the field out as much, and like they have the Rams this week, the Rams run 95% of their plays are 3 receiver, 1 tight end, 2 receiver, 2 tight end, I believe. Let me just look at that real quick. 2 receivers, 1 running back, 2 tight ends. So 12 personnel and 31 or 11 personnel, 3 receivers, 1 running back, 1 tight end. So I think that the Seahawks have gotten a lot of their bad matchups out of the way. And the second thing is, while their pass rush was still really bad, Carlos Dunlap showed up. And here's the play that he did. It's a great pass, and they need him to step up big time, because it does not look like their other players can. Like, they're going to need Bobby Wagner, they're going to need Jamal Adams, and they're going to need this man right here to keep doing this. Because if he doesn't keep doing this, then they're screwed. Because if we remember, the reason why the Seahawks were able to go to back-to-back Super Bowls a couple years ago was because of that defense, the Legion of Boom. You cannot expect to beat top-tier football teams late stages of the playoffs just with an offense. We've seen that tale time and time again, and it always fails. You need to have some semblance of a defense. And I just think if they play a team like the Cardinals in the playoffs, or maybe even a team like the Saints that are able to exploit how bad this team is in space when you spread them out, I'm not, like, Russell Wilson is going to have to literally just be perfect, or they're going to keep losing games like this.
Yeah, I completely agree. We were talking before, like, they kind of just remind me of that 2018 Chiefs, just heavy relied on, like, Patrick Mahomes threw for 50 touchdowns, and it looks like Russell Wilson's going to eclipse the 50 touchdown mark too. And at a point, like, you need your defense during these playoff runs to eclipse that and make a couple plays. And the way they got a very short week because they got to go. They play Rams, and then you got to go Thursday night and play the Cardinals, and that's tough, especially for a defense that is struggling. If they come out there and struggle against the Rams, it is you have to hit the reset button really quick and try to figure out how to beat the Cardinals, and that can be really troublesome for this defense and for this team as a whole.
At least the Seahawks linebackers, from when I watched them on tape, like their past couple games and then earlier in the season, their linebackers are still playing at an elite level. So there is still hope. I don't believe the Seahawks defense is like a Jaguars defense where it's like, okay, no matter what you do, you're kind of fucked. Like this defense, they have the talent, maybe not through and through, but I think they have enough to where they can piece something together to make a run with. It's just this pass rush needs to improve, and this isn't a team like they cannot rely on blitzing 5 and 6 guys, every play, or rushing 5 or 6, not blitzing 5 or 6 every play just to create pass rush. They need to be able to have some sort of balance and the ability to create pass rush in when they're dropping 7 into coverage. They just can't rely on blitzing every play in every passing scenario. The offenses these days, especially in the NFC, are too good, and they don't have the coverage on the back end to just be like, okay, Trey Flowers, Dunbar, Quandre Diggs, yeah, just go one-on-one against everyone. They don't have that kind of talent. So I do think they can still salvage a defense for the season, even though they've been historically bad, especially if they go up against teams that like to just play more condensed, because this is a good team against the run, and that I think enables their linebackers to really make an impact on the game. But if I'm a coach playing the Seahawks, I'm spreading that defense out and I'm attacking the sidelines, because I just think that they're really weak in that area.
Keep on bringing up Legion of Boom. Like, obviously, this defense, and nothing's going to be like the Legion of Boom. Like, that defense was incredible to watch and all that. But, it's this point in the season where they have to find their identity. Are they going to be a shutdown defense here on out? Probably not, unless they really turn the corner. But they have to find their identity on defense where they can make a couple plays and, not give up 40 points a game. I mean, they're averaging 360 yards through the air. I mean, just quarterbacks are having a field day with it. So hopefully they're seeing the same stuff we're seeing, and obviously they will. But I don't know. But like you were right, silver lining is nice for them because they do have a lot of great, still elite players on this defense to make plays, and they can't get much worse than they have been. And there's still time to really try to like figure it out, and hopefully carry them to a Super Bowl or something like that.
And they did make a lot of just dumb mistakes. I mean, some of those clips that I showed, whether it's a dumb mistake or just an error, schematically, some guy thinks he's in a position that he's not supposed to be. I mean, I have tons more clips of just dumb errors. Just, no matter what happened, the play was just doomed from the start because there was miscommunication and players were playing the wrong role. Like, if they're able to get rid of those plays, which I think under Pete Carroll, they definitely have the ability to, especially you have to remember this is a COVID year. The practices are probably weird as nuts. Like, they have that. It's just you got to start putting it together now or later. I want to see, and I think the Rams this weekend is a great opportunity for this defense to remake that statement like they kind of made against the 49ers, saying, hey, this is just a bad matchup. It was a bad day on the road in Buffalo, traveling all the way across the United States. Let's get this show back on the road and show that, yeah, we may not be a top defense, but we can still play. Lucas, you got anything else to say on the Seahawks?
Yeah, I think I kind of agree with you, Frank. I think a lot of their problems, I think can be fixable. I think players just being in wrong positions, I think, it's not the easiest thing in the world to fix, but it's not the hardest. The Rams matchup, I think, coming up is a good test. Jared Goff isn't going to run around as much as Josh Allen or Kyler Murray, who've done the most damage to the Seahawks offense this year, and the Rams, kind of have also adopted more of a ground and pound kind of mentality this year. So I think that's a much better matchup for them. And I also think, even though they do give up the most passing yards per game, I think that number, honestly could be a little inflated, since Russell Wilson just torching everyone. The teams are going to have to try to play catch up most of the game, and they're going to have to throw the ball out themselves. Um, and, besides, the 2 games they've lost, opposing offenses haven't done, too much devastating damage other than, the Cardinals and Bills. I guess the Cowboys played pretty well offensively with Dak, but he was also on fire before he went out. But in between those 2 losses, they played the 49ers and they gave up 27 points, but most of those were in garbage time. So obviously, it's not looked good for their defense so far, but it's I think we're still a long way from being able to write them off completely.
Yeah, I think you're right. The stats I think are overblown a little bit because you see all over Twitter and Reddit and whatnot. Oh, my historically bad numbers from a Pete Carroll defensive coach, all this and that. You're right. Off the opposing offense is probably getting more snaps, and especially a lot of snaps from behind. And